I mean, before we even start, I'm going to say, how many of you had seen this film on the big screen before today? Wow, quite a few of you. Fabulous.
Wow. Does this work? Yes.
Yes, very true. John, such a pleasure to have you with us at the London Action Festival. And this is such a treat, right? 35 years of Predator. And here we are with this full house of audience. I have to first kind of give you a huge congratulations on our Moving Target Awards. And on Friday night, he received this wonderful award, and there were a couple of lovely statements that came in from Alec Baldwin, for example. He said, in his one acting lesson with me, he gave me, when we were shooting for the Hunt for Red October, it still rings in my ears today, as I was fiddling with everything, and John said, "Can't you just stand there and do nothing?" And you know what, John? You were right. I love that. Care to comment?
No, that's not something we'll get into. Thank you.
Okay. And Michael Tadros Sr., the producer of Die Hard with a Vengeance and the Thomas Crown Affair, said, "You can't bullshit John. He's an unbullshittable director." John Mctiernan is a genius. He's brilliant and one of the nicest human beings I've ever known in my life. And he's my friend. So John, let's start with asking about Predator, because this is the one time we had a movie that's a popcorn movie. It's action, sci-fi, and a slasher horror movie as well. You managed to genre them so seamlessly. Was that in your thoughts when you started creating this?
I don't know, I suppose so. It was probably in the script. Yes, the idea wasn't to, I was just trying to make I was trying to make a 14-year-old boy's movie, that's all.
Was this the sort of film you would have wanted to create as a 14-year-old boy?
I mean, just what I did. I mean, that style of movie, that's all. It was filled with nonsense and looked heroic.
Fabulous. Now, I mean, you started your journey getting a great education in the arts at Juilliard, for example. Was making cinema always in the cards for you? Were your family supportive of you going into the business?
I don't know. I think I was too much of a problem for my family. They gave up about what I would go into. It's funny. My father was a lawyer, but he went blind in World War II. He lost his sight in World War II. And so he pursued music as one of the few joys he had. And he used to sing opera. So we would go for the summer when he'd arrange, he'd wind up getting a vacation for his family while he sang at various opera houses through the summer. So I sort of grew up backstage. In opera, where you don't know what the words are. I mean, it doesn't matter what the words are, it's how the person sounds as he says them. And then when I went to grad school for film, American Film Institute, you see like 3 movies a day or something, and I just stopped reading the subtitles. It sort of never made any difference after. I mean, if a movie works, it works, and you can tell, you get the idea of what they're saying. It doesn't matter. I'm babbling here. I don't know if any of this is responsive to your question.
So tell me about some of the early movies you saw as a child that might have inspired you to go on to make these grades.
I don't know, something I said the other day. I didn't realize at the time, my mother was extremely bored. kid, and she used to go to the movies every day. And if there wasn't a babysitter or anything, so I went to the movies, and there weren't any limits on what you could take a child to. So I didn't realize it until I was until I was in grad school. I realized I'd seen every movie in the 1950s. I'd seen all the grown-up movies in the 1950s. When I was a little kid, I wouldn't have seen them, but I realized that I'd seen, when I was 30, as I said, I realized I'd seen all those movies, all sorts of movies that they started to show us at AFI, at the High and the Mighty, and all those. That whole generation of Hollywood films. And I'd seen it when I was a little kid, when I was 34.
Wow. And when you started your journey into Hollywood, would you say, what would you cite as the movies that you had seen as a child that inspired you to get in there and start directing?
She's asking the same question.
I don't know there were movies I liked. I don't know if they inspired me to. I don't know. I thought I wanted to go into theater, to be a theater director, but somewhere rather early I discovered that theater directors are both gay and have a trust fund. And so I realized I was completely ill-equipped. So, and filmmaking is sort of a mix of an aesthetic pursuit and engineering. It still is engineering. And so, I have an engineer's sort of mind. So it was always, it was sort of the path of least resistance, I'm sorry.
Fair enough. I read an interview with the Russo brothers. I'd spoken to them recently, and in Financial Times, they cited you as a big inspiration for them to go into the action genre. And that genre of movies, in some ways, you kind of resurrected it, didn't you, on screen? How do you feel about being that inspiration for so many people?
Couldn't give a shit, frankly.
Fair enough.
Basically, it's low to say. No, the one thing, what I did was I had an actual film education. So I knew what Europeans were doing, and had been doing for the previous 15 years. And most of the guys making action movies they didn't have a film education. They didn't know what other people were doing. They were still doing master medium and close-up and stuff. But so I just took the techniques of Fellini and Bertolucci and those people, stuff they've been doing for 20 years in Europe, and just applied it to silly movies like this.
Wow, that is amazing. Now let's jump to Predator because everyone wants to hear about it. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't your first choice. Jean-Claude Van Damme was. Is that correct?
No.
Let's clarify that then.
Wow. No, that story's apparently gotten twisted somehow. It was a goofy business of some agents who had just hired this Belgian, I guess, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And they heard that we had this movie where it was Arnold against the monster. And so they pressed the studio for, well, why can't our guy play the monster? And there wasn't anybody at the studio who had the courage to say, the monster is a 7-foot rubber suit. You really want to put your new movie star in a 7-foot rubber suit? And so, everyone involved was just filled with courage, and no one said one word before Jean-Claude And they sent him all the way down to Mexico, 4 airplanes. And someone told him to get into this suit. And he came out, and there was this long string of French cursing. And Joel Silver and I apologized profusely to him. You know, we had dinner with him and put him on the plane.
Bless, bless. And about working with Arnold, what was that like for you? What are your memories, your favorite memory of him on set with you?
Favorite memory of what?
Of Arnold, working with Arnold on set.
I don't know. I mean, in general, I had campaigned that we'd try to go do stuff for real. I really wanted to go to the jungle and really, and I wanted to take a camera and actually, the first day, I think, first thing we shot. And it was just some stuff that I'm supposedly running from the monster or something. And I just picked this miserable pathway up through some jungle, and it had mud and we got out there with a handheld camera, and we climbed through the mud with them, and they were climbing through the mud, and all this stuff and yelling, and it was simple, and it was real, and it was make-believe, because we were actually doing it. We're actually climbing up this terrible slippery hillside in the mud, and we're all getting miserable. And he loved it. He loved it because it was real. It wasn't acting. It wasn't, bullshit in the studio. And he always loved days where we get to do anything real. The more real it was, have him go swim in a giant river, he loved. Any of those days, he loved them. And it was fine for me because, I was just trying to make the thing look real. So if I could get Arnold to actually go swim in this river, fine. I'll have a cameraman with a little camera right in front of him on a rubber boat. And we did all that sort of stuff, and he loved it. And because he loved it, we did that, because we were able to. There are a lot of other stars who don't really want to get too far from the trailer and don't want to leave the studio, and they're mostly about going to dinner. And Arnold was never like that.
Wow, legend. A legend indeed. And of course, with the ecosystem of the Predator, he kind of lands in Guatemala, but this was set in Mexico, sweltering heat, and like you said, you wanted to make it real, and we could feel that when we watched the film on screen. Any kind of memories about that, and about how you created that kind of humanoid predator and showed him to us in such a way that we hadn't seen before? It was very new to us.
Well, there was a man named Stan Winston, who I think is since deceased, but he was wonderful at it. And he built a wonderful monster with all the crazy stuff. And actually, every place the monster went, there were like 8 kids with airplane controllers who were controlling his face. Oh yeah, it was a big deal. And I drove him crazy. Because I kept trying to, and I actually ultimately got 2 shots out of it. I kept trying to be able to see the monster act like he was a really, strong, athletic, 7.5-foot tall thing, right? So we put a suit on a monkey. Had the monkey go through the trees. The monkey hated the suit. The monkey hated the suit. And that didn't work. And then I worked for a long time on this giant bungee rig, a way to make the man weighed 250 pounds, the suit weighed another 150 pounds. He could barely walk, you know. So I wanted a device that would take 250 pounds off him, so that he could use his own muscles to move. And we did get a few shots out of it, but and it was made out of bungee cords, right? Now, the amount of stress from a bungee cord, like I thought I could just use a rope and you put a barrel with rocks in it on the other side, but that moves too slowly. You can't, you know, the man tries to go up and it takes 2 beats before the rocks go down and it just doesn't work. So I tried bungee cords. But the problem with bungee cord is the amount of pull from it keeps changing depending on how much you, right, okay, so let's see. He takes a step up and the bungee cord shrinks by a foot and suddenly it isn't supporting him at all. He takes a step down and the bungee cord stretches and now it's pulling 400 pounds up. And he even can't make the step down. So I had to figure out, okay, so then the bungee cord that's holding him has to be at least 100 feet long. Okay, so now I have to have a crane, which is what I did. I got a crane. And I had these long bungee cords that would come down to him so that within a range of about 3 feet, the amount of pull on him was always the same. And he could get used to it. And there are a couple of shots still that survive of him stepping from one thing to another. I'm sorry, how did I get into that? What the fuck?
I'm just loving this because this is John the engineer talking. You engineered those scenes, wow.
Movie makers have always been engineers. No, I mean it, they always have. You know, starting with, what's his name, who worked in Lyon, who had to, you know, terrified the audience by having a train appear to come out of the screen. Movie makers have always been engineers. Kubrick was entirely an engineer.
Anyway, and let's just remember back to the heat of Mexico and having to survive that for the whole shoot. Because how long did the shoot take?
Oh, I don't know, 70 days or so.
And in that terrifying heat, how did you cope?
Well, I don't know, it wasn't terrifying. As long as we were in the jungle, it was fine. I don't know. We just all got used to it. We just said, look, this is where we are. And actually it helped. It helped for the poor guy in the suit. Okay. That was a different deal. Okay. We got these things that they made for race car drivers, which is a vest. Race car drivers get overheated. And it was a vest that would circulate cold water down his back, inside the suit to keep him cool. But the rest of us, we got, you know, it was part of the deal. It was part of, it made it more real for the actors. It made everything better, actually.
Fabulous. I will be coming to the audience. We have some roving mics here. But before that, I just wanted to ask you, how much footage did you shoot for this film? And was it quite hard to edit it down? And is there a director's cut?
We didn't change it after my cut. I guess this is there isn't another one. No, there isn't that much. See, part of what I did is, again, using then current European techniques, I didn't just shoot master, medium, and close-up. You know, put several cameras on the thing, let it all run, blah, 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 and then have an editor see if he can make up a story of it. You know, it seemed to me that, wasn't it just seemed to me, Europeans were always already making movies where every cut is planned, every shot is planned. This shot follows that shot, just as this note follows that note in music. You don't just throw a bunch of notes into a box and tape them together to come up with a movie score. You don't just throw a bunch of different shots in a bin and tape them together to come up with a movie. Shots are specific. They start in a particular way. They have a particular speed. They have a key, if you will, just as music has a key. And there are 8 tones that are in that key. And you hit one of the other notes on the piano and it's off. That doesn't sound right. It's the same thing in film. So a shot doesn't just go in there, it goes after this shot and before that shot. And you should know within a reasonable range where this shot's going to, which frame it's going to start on, and how far it's going to go, and then what you're going to. So I would shoot, in effect, I was sort of, in a way, it wasn't edited in the camera, but I would shoot the shots that I wanted to use. I didn't just put up a bunch of cameras on whatever was going on. So actually, I've always shot very little. I mean, I think the normal range runs somewhere between 10 and 20 times the amount of footage then that people would shoot would be between 10 and 20 times the length of the movie. And I don't know, this one's like 6 times, 5 or 6 times. That's
wow. Very efficient.
No, it's just I don't know. Most decent directors do the same thing now. And I was only doing it. I was doing it early in the United States, but it wasn't early for Europeans. Europeans had already figured out how to do it. A lot of Italians and Frenchmen had already figured out how to do it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now we are very lucky because we have an extended Q&A today, which means that if you have some burning questions, you can ask them now. All I ask of you is to not give comments and just give us an actual question, and keep them to 1 question per person. And also just to say, yeah, ask away.